for the introduction and for the invitation. So my name is Miriam Simun. I'm an artist. I'm also a research assistant and master's student at the Media Lab just upstairs. So just before we start, I'm going to try to talk as little as possible so that we can actually move. But just before we start, if you could just try one thing with me. So if you just take your right thumb and just kind of make it tight. You don't have to show me, just do it wherever you're doing it. And then relax again. And then just do that again. Once more. And do that again once more, so make it tight and then relax. And now I want you to pay attention to how it feels, especially in relation to your left thumb. And maybe also pay attention to what it feels like. The air, the temperature, I don't know, the pants that it's sitting on, especially in relation to your left thumb. So maybe that's an interesting experiment, and maybe while I'm talking you can try also, I don't know, with your knee or with your foot, and that will get us a little bit to where we're going. But I'm going to talk you through really quickly how I got here, because I am not a dancer or a choreographer. I'm super lucky that I got to work with Luciana Chugar in kind of starting to develop this program, which is still in its conceptual phase, and you are the first. I've run this program now with 7 MIT engineering students, to pretty great success, I would say, but it's still very much in progress. We start working with dancers at the end of this month and with synchronized swimmers next month. But you are the first public experiment, sorry to say, but hopefully it'll be a fun one. Okay, but I'm going to talk you through just a little bit how I got here, because this movement is not always where I work in. So, as William Gibson says, excuse me for reading, but I'm trying to keep it short, and this is the only way. As William Gibson says, the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. So this is Houston, not even a year ago. And I'm showing you a picture of the human environment while talking about the future of the human body, because we are a part of our environment, and our environment is a part of us. And so this work is really rooted in the idea that we cannot think or talk or engineer the future of the human without thinking about how we constitute each other. So the proposed solution to these storms and to sea level rise in general across most of the cities that are on the coast, which comprise a huge proportion of the global population, is a seawall, building a wall against the sea. So in my opinion, not only is this a poor solution, seawalls will always eventually fail, but also building walls against perceived oncoming threats I find to be incredibly poor and dangerous metaphors to live by. So this is a picture of 2 humans in an extreme environment. Pictured here are 2 strategies towards adapting to this environment, 2 different sets of knowledges, 2 different sets of technologies, and also 2 different sets of abilities. In many circles, especially in the West, we really define one as historical and one as a demonstration of progress. So I'm really interested in contesting and confusing these conceptions. So I'm interested in how we evolve the future of the human, especially being here at MIT, and not just the brain, but or the mind as kind of some group of people that are really excited about uploading their brain to the internet and kind of disposing of their body entirely, we'll talk about, but really about the body too, and what the body knows and how the body connects us to where we are and makes up who we are. And I'm interested in all of these kind of, to varying degrees, grandiose questions, but really an ethical approach, like who gets to decide it according to which systems of knowledge. So I get to transhumanism. So this is a term that's commonly used, especially in kind of tech circles, to describe the future of the human, and it talks about the extension of the physical, cognitive, emotional capacities of the human. And these are the images that come up when you Google search the term, which I find really important because they represent the dominant model, one can say, for the future of the human as something like a computing machine. So if you look here at wireless brain-to-device interaction, gold skin implants, skin cells, metabrain, all these kind of things. We have the metaphor of the processor. And I'm really interested in models, and I've become, over my course of the time here, really interested in models. How we construct them, and how they in turn constrain the way we create knowledge, and understand and build our world. And thinking about models in science, in art, in economy, also really thinking about the idea of the model organism and how that's defined. So I actually really don't want to become a computer. I want to become an octopus, which is how this project kind of started. And the desire behind that is also an important part of the project. And while there's a lot of excitement about human futures as floating brains in the network, or like bodies going up into space, the reality is that for most of the people on our planet, space is not going to be the context for the future, but it's going to really be a future contending with rising seas. So I decided to start this project by learning with my body, and the first thing I did is start to learn to free dive. This is the first time I free dove not in a pool, and this was like totally a life-changing experience. So when you're learning to free dive, the first thing you're learning to do is how to breathe and how to not breathe. And the first time you do it, you can hold your breath for about 20 seconds. And in the space of 2 sessions, I was able to go from 20 seconds to 3.5 minutes. A feat that seems impossible, right? Like this is not possible for my body to do, but in fact it is. And what my trainer would say as I was, my chest was convulsing in the pool underwater, which happens because the carbon dioxide is building up in your blood. It's not dangerous. You're not yet lacking oxygen, even though you feel like it's impossible. She would just keep saying, your urge to breathe is a lie. Your urge to breathe is a lie. Your urge to breathe is a lie. And so it's a lot of both physical and psychological training to get there. And this I found completely inspiring, because if our capacity to breathe or to hold our breath, if there's such a big distance between what we think our bodies can do and what's actually possible to do, what about all of the other host of abilities, sensitivities, capacities that it resides already within our biology that just take work? We can add on all kinds of tools and technologies, and this is not an argument that we shouldn't, but it's perhaps an argument that how do we know what else we need to add on if we don't know what we can do with the body we already have? Yeah. So this training program is kind of the result, Training Transhumanism, is the result of this kind of, let's say, manifesto or movement I'm trying to build called Your Urge to Breathe is a Lie, which kind of addresses all of these questions and proposes that training as a technology to kind of build the future of the human and think about what the future of the human body looks like. And really a project, I would say, rooted in attending to the body, understanding the body is crucial to part of our identity and how we connect to the natural world and the non-natural world, and really thinking about kind of equity and access, development of internal abilities, and expanding the capacities that are already possible, like the unknown capacities that we don't know that are possible within us. Okay, so with that, so I'm working with synchronized swimmers. And these are the three focuses of the training program: tactile cognition, camouflage, which I define as hyper-awareness of your local environment and then the ability to respond to that environment in a way that builds resiliency, and then the idea of distributed intelligence. So octopuses in particular have the ability to make independent decisions with each of their 8 arms in addition to a main brain. So in some ways it really confuses what we think about as an organism. Is it 9 organisms housed within a single skin, or is it an organism that has 9 brains? Both of which, in terms of our anthropocentric idea of what an organism is, how a brain works, what is the central processor and the hardware that it's sending information to. All of these kind of conceptions are confusing and super interesting to me. But somewhere along the line I realized that I don't think I can actually distribute my own intelligence. I do have some neurons in my gut that are making decisions outside of my main brain, but like I don't really know how to get them to talk to each other. And so what I realized is that actually maybe in fact in order to become an octopus, it takes more than one person. And so maybe the future of the human is some kind of organism that can come together and come apart, which in the face of kind of neoliberalist individualism that's ever rising was an exciting idea to me, to think about that the future of the human can sometimes encompass just me, or sometimes me plus 1, plus 2, plus 8, that we can kind of think about the superorganism structure. So those are the key things we're working on. We only have 10 minutes, so we're not going to get You're not going to be an octopus before you leave today, sorry. But come find me, we can work it out. And with that, we're going to start with some exercises. Thank you so much for your help. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is I'm actually just going to borrow from kind of some training methods, meditation, mindfulness, yoga that most people are maybe a little bit familiar with, just to like get us into our body. These are not necessarily exactly what I use. But if you can just close your eyes, please. And we're just going to do a quick kind of checking in, something like what you did with your thumbs and maybe your knee, but with the rest of your body. And so I just want you to pay attention. Like, how does your head feel? How is it sitting on your neck? Are you clenching your jaw? How do your shoulders feel? Does the right one feel different than the left? And maybe you take a breath. And another one. And as you breathe out, you let the air like go to the part of your body that's maybe feeling a little bit tense. And pay attention to how you're sitting in your chair, how your weight is falling into your chair, where your feet hit the ground, and really thinking about the support that you have as kind of also an extension of you. And so, yes, there's a distinction where you end and where the chair begins, but where does the weight really fall into that? Like, where is there really a moment of support? Can you identify those parts of your body that feel like they are become also a part of connecting you to another part? And we're just going to continue to breathe and take a long breathe in and breathe out. And I'm just going to talk about this idea that we come from a long line of sensing creatures. And actually, our last common ancestor with the Cephalopod, which is the group of animals that come together, that octopus, include the octopus, is this kind of deep sea worm. And it's a really simple organism, although it did have some neurons, maybe some ability to sense light. But I want you to just imagine for a second this kind of inhabiting the quality of this deep sea worm. So you can't see really. You maybe perceive a little bit of light somehow. You don't know where you are, you don't know who you are, you don't know which end is your head and which end your tail. And you're just really experiencing impressions. And you kind of feel the air, you feel the temperature, you feel the weight. And maybe now I want you to try to start to do this thing that Luciano talks a lot about, which is this idea of seeing with our skin. Maybe we don't have so much skin available to us, maybe it's through clothes, but that's also fine. But maybe just, I know you're sitting in your chairs, but if you just start to touch a little bit, whether it's your legs or the chair around you, just start to kind of sense like where you are in space. What is the material around you? Is it rough? Is it smooth? Try to kind of follow your desire a little bit, right? So like when I start touching my clothes, and then I like run into the zipper, and it has this kind of strange texture, and so I stay there for a second because it's kind of interesting. And really trying to get out of your head that you know what this is. Oh, this is a zipper. Oh, this is a chair. And really trying to experience what is the texture that you're encountering. Does it feel cold? Does it feel warm? Does it move? Does it not move? How does it respond to you? Where is it holding you? Where are you holding it? And if you encounter like a piece of skin, maybe it's your skin, maybe it's somebody else's skin, try to not immediately identify it as skin, but just also as another material. Maybe it's warm, maybe it feels nice, maybe it doesn't feel nice, and kind of just following what you're feeling and trying to learn where you are by that. And now, keeping our eyes closed, we're going to continue. And I'm sorry, these things usually take 20, 30 minutes to get into, but we're going to do the speed dating version here. We're going to try another thing. So this worm, and also the cephalopod, is an invertebrate. So they're all muscle. And the idea of moving and being all muscle is really hard for us to imagine because our movements are really constrained and dictated by the way our joints are set up, by what can move and in which angle it can go, except for one organ, which is your tongue. And so as a way of imagining and identifying and kind of trying to get into the experiment of thinking as an invertebrate, I want you to try to start to use your tongue. So everybody's eyes are closed, you look fine, nobody's watching. If you could just stick out your tongue like this, and just start to move with it. Maybe how far up can it go? How far down can it go? Can it go side to side? And just bear with me for a little bit. We usually kind of are using our tongues in only very specific situations and perhaps for short moments. But what if we just abandon that for a second and try to think, what does it feel like to move through the world as a tongue? Where do you hit your teeth, and where do you hit your skin, and what kind of, can it make a wave? Can you fold? What are the ways that you can fold it? And how does it feel different when it's inside of your mouth or when it's outside of your mouth? We're just going to keep going with that for a little bit. Now that you've had a little bit of time to kind of practice and to just think like what it would be like, right, for this is the way that you move through the world. I mean, our tongue is also interesting because they're chemical receptors, so you're literally, if you encounter things, you're literally tasting and kind of experiencing their chemical makeup, but just even in the movement. So now I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and turn to the person next to you. And this is going to feel a little weird, but just bear with me. What we're going to do is we're going to mirror tongues. So maybe some of you have done this mirroring exercise, or I move my arm and you move your arm. But it's actually less weird than staring each other in the eyes, which some people would make you do. But I'm just going to ask you to mirror tongues. So one person moves to the left, you try to follow them. They move to the right, you try to follow them. Maybe you switch at some point. Nobody in your life maybe will ever ask you to do this again, so I'm going to give you the opportunity to have this once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I'm just going to continue to kind of talk, as you're mirroring, to talk about this idea of we have, very clear cognitive structures that we've built up to move through the world, to engineer the world, to design the world, all of which are really necessary for the world that we live in.
I'm having to like
And what this is kind of an offer to also add into all of these highly evolved ways to move into the world, a return, or not even a return, an addition of some kind of awareness through tactility. All right. That was great. Thank you for participating. Thanks. So now we're gonna maybe get up out of our chairs, and I want you to find a part of the room that is calling to you, whatever, that's interesting for some reason. Maybe we're going to be exploring texture, so I am gonna tell you that ahead of time. So maybe there's like some concrete or some wall or some floor that seems interesting to you, the post with all these papers. So we're going to really start to think about how do we experience texture with our bodies. And so now once you've found a place, the computer's okay, but be careful. Now that you've found a place in the room, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes, and we're going to go back to this idea of seeing with our skin. Seeing with our skin, with our weight, with sound, with the texture that something gives. And so, I mean, you're here, you're wherever you are, and you have your eyes closed. And you're just going to start to touch where you are, right? And really, again, imagining this idea that you're this common ancestor, this deep sea worm, or maybe even you've evolved a little bit and you are the octopus that you see on that screen. And move slowly at first and just starting to try to think about, not think in fact, just try to see with your skin. What does it feel like? Does it feel warm? Does it feel cool? Does it move? Does it respond to you? Do you respond to it? And trying not to name things, trying not to identify, okay, now I'm touching floor, now I'm touching chair, now I'm touching paper, but in fact, just trying to feel it as it is and think about its quality. And maybe you start to take that quality a little bit into your body. So if it's like really cool and really hard, maybe you try to think about how you can also engender this idea of kind of cool and hard in your own body, right? Because the reason the octopuses and cephalopods in general have survived as long as they have, and they are older creatures than we are, is in fact because of camouflage, because their ability to identify their environments, identify with their environments, camouflage inside of it. And so really just trying to, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time here. This one really is one where we like to take a lot of time, and you'll be amazed over the course of something relatively short, like 20, 25 minutes, our whole conception of how we know things can start to shift. So we have a tendency to that, but I'm going to give you a little bit of time. And also, let's not forget the breath. So sometimes if you take a deep inhale and take a deep exhale, you start to notice how does the thing you're touching start to feel? How does it respond? What does it move into your own body? And again, if you do, for some reason, encounter skin or encounter another body, and we don't really have enough time, so of course, let's be very careful and be aware and don't cross any boundaries. But just for a second, if your hand brushes a shoe, try not to say, oh, that's a shoe, I have to immediately move my hand away, but try to see what can you learn, what do you understand maybe about this texture, about this space, about this shoe, about the way that shoe responded to you, what can you learn? Okay. We're gonna kind of wrap up this sense of learning, and I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna do one last exercise. I'm gonna ask you to find a new partner. Someone else that you didn't tongue with, maybe someone you don't know, but doesn't have to be. I'm open. And you can do this sitting or standing, but maybe standing is easier for the sake of time. And I'm gonna demonstrate with Nicole, if you don't mind. So what we're going to do, I call it, I call it patty cake game under different consciousness, let's say. But what we're going to do is we're going to try to learn the way we learn the environment with our skin, but we're going to do it with our hands and with another pair of hands. And try to take out for a second that these are hands. And also it's easier if you just, for the beginning, keep your fingers straight. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try, and you can close your eyes or open your eyes as you feel, but I'm just going to try to learn a little bit how it feels, what is the energy. Maybe I start to have some imaginings about who this person is or what their energy is just based on this. And for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to just stick to hands, but kind of just using the same methods that we used with the building. Sorry, it's really hard for me to think with my brain and my hands at the same time. So the same methods that we use with the building, we're going to try to kind of learn each other a little bit. Thank you. So this will be our grand finale. Do you know? Sorry, I just put that in my. You can try and see me. try for a second to close your eyes and see how it shifts the experience. And also try for one moment. I mean, maybe you're already there, but try not to decide what you're going to do. Try to really feel what is happening, what is the movement, and just either respond without thinking, or another way to go about it is to feel the quality of something and try to take it in your own body. So if it's going fast, maybe you take this speed, or if it's going slow, it's cautious, you try to take that speed into your own movement. Until we maybe can reach, and this takes some time, but until we maybe can reach a place where we don't know who's making the decision and where it's coming from. The last 10 seconds. Thank you. Thank you. The last 10 seconds, and with that, I think I'm done. Thank you.